Welcome to the latest edition of First State Kopites podcast. This week, we're delighted to be joined by our old friends, Daz from Baltimore and Ben from Des Moines. Thanks for putting the scarf up there because that means I don't have to remember everything in my introduction. Appreciate
My
it.
pleasure. I aim to please.
Good to have you both back. This week, we're going to do a review. We're going to look back at last week. The games are coming thick and fast, so we're going to talk about Everton, Ajax, although they don't belong in the same sentence, and yesterday's game against Sheffield United. And then we'll look ahead to this week when we play Midtjylland. Please, add to the comments and correct us if I've got that pronunciation wrong. And next weekend, the very dangerous-looking West Ham United. Oh, wow. Again, an odd sentence. If you're tuning in for the first time, please subscribe on whatever platform, whether it's YouTube, whether it's on Anchor, or whether it's Pocket Podcasts or Spotify. Please subscribe. We're going to get going. We're going to go back to last week when Liverpool drew 2-2 against Everton in a very contentious game. And then we had a really strong 1-0 win away at Ajax at the Johan Cruyff Stadium, I think it's called.
No.
It's not called that?
Cruyff. Don't mispronounce it like every other Englishman, please.
It's Cruyff.
Cruyff.
Oh, that's very helpful, Charlie.
Only one way to settle this, knife fight.
So the thing that Charlie should be aware of is, being the host of the podcast, I have the ability to kick people off. So just, one warning. Right? So
How many do I need?
I'm going to go to Ben, who... So what as you look back on last week, what are your thoughts? What's the one kind of takeaway for you from those two difficult games?
For me, I think the overarching thing that I have come to realize after the grief of the Van Dijk injury, getting over my grief, is that we're not going to be the only club or support to go through that in the course of a year. I was just looking at some of the injury lists. Leicester played today. Their center half, whose name I could never even come close, the Turkish gentleman.
Soyuncu.
There you go. He's out for 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
Vardy could only play maybe 15, 20 minutes today. And that's just one club. Of course, Virgil's a really important player in our team, but we're better equipped to handle that than many clubs are. And I think that we just happen to be the first one to get bit by that. We're playing games every 3 days, every 4 days. And I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, that after the European matches are done, I think the Premier League is going to go to midweek too, right? So yeah, the bottom half of the table is going to be in on it too. So I think what we're going through, at least I'm trying to convince myself, I think everybody's going to be going through. And I think that we're going to see more Fabinho's playing center back in different clubs. And so far, so good. I mean, 3 points away in the Champions League. Had there not been the ridiculousness with VAR and the injury to Van Dijk, the injury to Thiago, I probably would have taken the draw at Goodison Park. But then, of course, the last-minute goal that was robbed from us. I just think in the end, the way that I have soothed my wounds is to say, we're going through it first, but everybody's going to go through this too.
Yeah. Wow. That's more positivity than I've got about the Everton game, I have to tell you. But I think, there are definitely a couple of things that aren't quite so desperate about Van Dijk being out as people would have you believe. Like, I think BBC ran some stupid stat about how Liverpool had played without Van Dijk over the last 3 years. And it's like, yeah, but that was before Alisson was playing either, most of those games. So I tend to err on the side of, we'll find a way to do this. Daz, welcome.
Yeah.
What's your take on the last week?
I think my major takeaway, and it probably fall into this week too, is it's good to see the gnarly Liverpool back again. The fact that we can dig in. I think that towards the end of last year, when we had it buttoned up, and we came back from Project Restart, our swagger had kind of swayed more towards hubris than actual swagger. And there was although I think that maybe the score line and the result against City wasn't fair. We just started leaking a lot of goals. You could see that it wasn't the type of snap that we'd had before we closed up shop because of COVID. And when we came back, it seemed like there was a little bit of it. It's still like residual, but it's to see us dig in against an Ajax team that's very good, and to do that at their shop was incredible. Specifically on the back of a grueling game against Everton.
Yeah,
I think those are never fun to watch for me, especially at Goodison. At home, it's different, but I think that we did enough to win that game. There's been reams and reams of paper written to the effect of how poor the result to take that goal away from us, and having Pickford still on the pitch. So I'll leave that to the more intelligent people. But I think that our response to that hammering and then coming back from an international break was exactly what you need to see out of a champion team. And it does. For me, it means that we can at least lean back on that. It's almost like a muscle memory. We recovered from that 7-2 drubbing in that fashion, and you could see that everyone was pulling in the same direction. I think that having Van Dijk out does, and again, other people have said this, I think that it makes us a better defensive unit, not by virtue of personnel, but on sheer defensive prowess alone, or digging in a little bit higher. So I think I'm right in saying that our line dropped a little bit. We weren't playing as high. We're a bit more cautious now. It's not the devil may care type stuff that you'd see with Verge back there, and not having Adrian back there, not Alisson, makes a huge difference as well, because you can see there's just not the same trust. Like, I don't think Adrian's very much like a Labrador puppy. Like, you never really know what he's going to do. You know that he'll do something outlandish and potentially a little bit dangerous, but you just don't know what he's going to do. And it was good to see him. He wasn't trying to fart around the back. Any ball that came back, he just wellied, which had its own issues because it just comes right back down our throat. He's not very good at finding a man in a red jersey, whatever color we're wearing. But the positives were, I think that it's good to see the null, like the fact that we can still do it. I think that we lost the potential to do it, and in both of those matches, last Saturday and then midweek this week, we got it back. It wasn't 15 minutes, was it?
It was not 15 minutes. So I do think it's significant that Henderson played in both those games when he didn't play as Villa. So I think that's absolutely huge. But the thing I'll take away from everything you've said was Adrian the Labrador puppy. I think that's pretty awesome. So on the note of that's probably going to be the quote that I'm going to use in the write-up when we publish this. So Sean, I know you and I have gone back and forth on WhatsApp quite a lot about the games before this weekend. Where are you now in terms of your perspective?
I think I don't know. The first thing that stands out this week to me is what a hero Fabinho's been. I think he basically saved us the points against Ajax with his performance. And I think he performed pretty well yesterday, although I thought he looked a little tired by the end of the game. And I thought we missed him in the midfield a little bit. I thought we played, well enough yesterday. We had, that garbage penalty that they gave. But where I noticed the difference wasn't really, it was in the air. I think we're weaker at center back, obviously without Virgil or Matip in the team. But it's not even the first ball that we're getting hurt on. It's the second ball. It's when the opposing team wins that first ball, we need to kind of get used to again, I guess, cleaning up that second ball so that they don't get chances there. But overall, I think the Everton game was a disaster. But I think coming back like we did in the next two games was great to see. And coming back after that horrendous penalty call yesterday, I think showed a lot of character too. And, it's great to have Alisson back. I think that'll make a huge difference. And he did make a couple very big saves yesterday that I'm not sure Adrian would have saved. So, I think it's going to be going to be a tough road ahead without Van Dijk, I think, over the course of the year. But a lot of the other clubs are not looking great either. And I think Ben made a great point with injuries. I think a lot of clubs are going to run into issues with injuries, especially when some of these clubs that aren't playing in Europe start playing 2 games a week. They don't have the squad that we have. And I'd look for, basically all of the top 6 to start making up some points when that happens in December. So, I think overall positive, but it's going to make it a lot harder without Van Dijk, obviously.
Well, it's going to be different. It's going to be different. And a couple of things to say. I have a slightly different perspective, actually, on Alisson, because I don't know that Arjun would have not made those saves. I think the issue with him more was how many times did Alisson come and get the ball or punch the ball away, whereas Adrian probably would have been on his line. The Alpha Raps review show today went into some depth about, like, why didn't Sheffield United change their game plan? Because they kept trying to put it underneath the bar, and it's like that wasn't the ball that it would have been had Adrian been playing.
Yeah. So there was a stat running around, social media, but it was interesting that they were showing the number of shots to the corner that Adrian faces versus Alisson, and it's not surprising, he's a backup keeper, but the percentage is much, much lower. I think that was one of the differences, besides, the fact that he's not as good on the ball. I mean, Alisson's arguably the best keeper in the world, so it's just like losing Van Dijk. You're going to drop off a level. But, it's reassuring to have him back. That's for sure.
Yeah. So Charlie, Everton, Ajax, I'm sure I'm saying that wrong as well.
I get chastised about the way I say Matip's name. Used to. Anyway.
It's
Joel. Coming from now.
Joel. Yeah, let's just settle with Joel. Everyone can agree on Joel. Look, Everton, frustrating that we dominated that game, played so well, really deserved to blow them out of the water and to have it taken away by, no need to say any more about that. Just good to see the guys step up. Good to see Joe Gomez take this opportunity on the left, and really has looked very good. This last game he played very, very well. And Fab, of course, stepping in, which, I knew he was capable of. It's going to be a bit of a learning curve. That penalty yesterday, I think it was ridiculous, but it wasn't. It is absolutely not a penalty, as everyone, I think, is saying. It was a rash challenge. He shouldn't have made that. Anyway, he'll learn. It was great to get the 3 points from Ajax away. I mean, that's the toughest game of the pool, to get those 3 points, even though, maybe a draw would have been a fair result given everything. So that's good. Another 3 in Midtjylland would be excellent. I'd like to see that, and that would really set us up well to be able to kind of, not necessarily throw the squad that we would at some of these, the last 3 group stage games. So that's good. And, good effort against Sheffield, just trying to figure it out, not necessarily playing our best, but playing very well and adjusting to a 4-2-3-1. Given Fab wasn't able to be a part of that midfield, probably hurt a bit. So Hendo and Genie have some figuring out to do there, or it'd be nice if Matip might be able to play centre back alongside Jogo, and that would possibly free up Fab for part of that double pivot, maybe with Thiago. But the question is, how much do you want to play Fab, really? Would you want to rest him and keep him as your rotating, centre back, or do you want to put him where you need him on the given day? So look, I'm trying not to get too, trying to, I guess, dig myself out of the depression of losing Virgil for the whole season. But just keeping positive. We look good. Everton got beaten today, and I'm enjoying every Everton defeat now almost as much as our wins. And the best punishment for Everton could have been to force them to play Pickford in net, and that proved true today. Certainly one of those saves was Pickford making it look like a world-class shot. So yeah, hey, interesting week, but
yeah,
trying to stay.
One of those run around, those stats, those trifling stats, if you will, one of those stats that seems to run around, Sean, as you were saying, was that apparently Calvert-Lewin had 5 passes, successful passes, over the course of 90 minutes. They were absolutely abject today.
Yep.
You can't even say it was because James wasn't playing. I know you can say, oh, it was that career-ending tackle that he took against us. We seem to be at the center of every Everton issue. Like Ancelotti had to go at us today, saying it was because of what happened. The rumors, if I'm reading this quote correctly, said those rumors around Pickford and Richarlison. Like you can protect your players, mate, but that's like you're protecting them in a different plane of existence there, because that's not on earth.
I'm surprised it's taken us this long to get to Ancelotti. Actually, given I wrote down one quote that he after today's game, which was, I'll let this sink in. To lose a player like Digne for 3 games is not fair. So,
anybody that hasn't seen that tackle, by the way, should go look at it. It wasn't even a tackle. It was just a foul. He didn't even make an attempt at the ball. And for any analyst or even Ancelotti to say that wasn't, worth a card is ridiculous. He just stamped on the back of the player's leg running full speed.
Well, Gary Lineker came straight to the – well, it doesn't surprise me. He's an ex-Toffee, but he came straight to the – like, oh, you get a foul now for running? The game giveaway was this.
Yes.
Right before he stomped on him.
For those of you listening, Daz had his arms in the air. Just to...
He just don't care.
Yeah.
Come on, who listens anymore? It's 2020? God, I can't wait for this.
Oh, you'd be surprised.
Oh.
Yeah. We're about 50-50 now, actually, just as a side note, about like views versus like listens. So.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Well, that's not the type of challenge that Pickford wants.
50. That's good. That might beat the Labrador puppy.
I lost a lot of respect for Ancelotti this week with some of the things he said. I mean, he's somebody that I've always, kind of held highly, even when he was Chelsea manager. But I mean, some of the stuff he said over the last week is just ridiculous. The James Rodriguez thing, and
Did you see that challenge? It was a body into the side. The worst thing that came of it was he was grabbing his nether regions.
No, I mentioned this to Paul earlier. The play he got hurt on was when he tried to injure one of our players at the end of the game. It wasn't when Virgil van Dijk.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
If you watch the game, when he was rolling around on the ground and all that crap, that's when he got injured.
It was Fabinho.
I'm trying to say it's when Van Dijk hit, it was just ridiculous.
It was a Fabinho challenge towards the end of the game. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
Whew. Spends a lot of anger here about Everton. Ben, you need to bring us back with cool vibes about I can live with it. Well, let's talk specifically about yesterday's game. We went with a 4-2-3-1, which we've talked about probably more than they've actually played it. What was your take on the performance yesterday?
I have 2 observations about the performance yesterday. I wasn't sure that everybody knew what formation they were in. It seemed more like I got to think how this would go, a 4-1-4 sometimes. Is that right? Or a 4-2-4 that Jota was up with Firmino, and you could see, especially in the first half, Robbo's going down the left, gets it to Mane, and if there's someone between the two of them, it's going nowhere, where usually you'd have Wijnaldum over there as an outlet for that pass. And because it wasn't clear, is Firmino playing in the 10? Is he supposed to come over and be an option for that? And that seemed pretty unclear in the first half. Now, I mean, I talk about this like I could go out and even, kick the ball correctly, but just my observation sitting and drinking beer. The bigger and more positive one, if you need me to be positive again on behalf of the group, is it would have been real easy for them to have rolled over after getting the penalty after the VAR BS of the previous week and said, well, it's just not going to work for us. And I think especially it would have been easy without 55,000 supporters there. And I don't think that we can ever really capture how tough it is for them to play when they're used to having those supporters and great supporters. I mean, I think I can say that objectively that, you know, for instance, I think the Liverpool supporters help the club a lot more than, say, the Everton supporters help, right? I mean, I think Everton gets a big boost for them not having fans there. And so it could have been really easy for them to have rolled over and said, oh, we're getting screwed over by VAR. We're doing this new formation. It's not quite working the first half. But they didn't. And I think that speaks to, you know, as the boss says, they're mentality monsters, right? And they're going to have to be and do it on their own without the fans there, without the cops sucking in a goal as they do. And so that bodes well for me too, that they are able to do those things and to do it on their own, basically, to bring it together on their own, do it themselves. Yeah. And the other thing I wanted to say, if you want to talk about stats, is that we are currently getting 2.167 points per game, which would have won us the league last year at 82 points. We would have won by 1 point. But at the pace we're on right now, we would have won the league last year. So if you think that maybe Man City isn't going to play as well, or Chelsea, Arsenal, Leicester, I don't even know who is in the rest. I mean, it's going pretty well, all things considered.
Wow, loved all of that. It's interesting, actually, the thing at the end of yesterday's game that I thought was interesting was with the Hendo interview. I had the shirt up there just to make a mental note of what I wanted to mention. But he talked about in the locker room. Well, he didn't say locker room, obviously, but our audience might look at it that way. He talked about the hunger, resilience, and character of the players. And it did feel there was almost something kind of different about yesterday compared with the other games. I think Neil Atkinson said today on the Anfield Wrap, it was almost like the first real game of the season, where there wasn't something else going on. So, Daz, yesterday.
I thought about this. I reflected because I saw the fact that we were probably going to roll out a 4-2-3-1 against Sheffield, and I thought we're going to clobber these. And then upon reflection, I thought to myself, this Sheffield United, a wounded Sheffield United, was probably the worst team that we could have come to Anfield after a grueling midweek game.
Yeah.
And I think what you're going to see is this type of game plan unfold against us at home quite frequently moving forward. Big man up front. You notice they had two guys up front. They sacrificed in the midfield and McBurney's incredible at this. He's an old English style or UK style number 9. He's an outlet ball. He's big enough to win the ball in the air. He can hold it up, and that's what they did. They beat our press. Most of it was, well, not most of it, but quite any time that they were under pressure, it went over the top. And I think someone mentioned it earlier, a lot of those second balls were falling directly to them. It was maddening to watch, because if we had have played against someone that wanted to play football against us, I think that we would have been way more in control of that match. Not to say that they didn't play football, but they were more willing to go down Route 1 than quite a few other teams that like to come and try and counterpunch. And you could say in the first 35 minutes, they had the lion's share of goal scoring chances, outside of the obviously contentious decision to give them a penalty in the first, what was it, 17 minutes of the match.
Yeah.
I think that I think that, and again, this may not play well with listeners, but I think that they had a legitimate shot at two more penalties. The one against Robbo's arm and the cross, seen those given. There's one where Jota pulled Berger down, I think it was it? I've seen those given too. So I think it might have been a bit of double jeopardy, which worked in our favor. I think either one of those could have been given had the original one not been given. But I think you'll probably find a lot of teams now that will employ that. And I think, speaking of the rap, I think that Sean Rogers used to say this a lot. Is like, why not? It's almost a free hit against us. No one's expecting to get much against us at Anfield. Why not sacrifice someone in the midfield, put 2 men up top and see what you can get? And against it's not necessarily a neophyte, but he's new at it. And Fabinho, why not put someone on him at all times and make it difficult for him? Yeah. And one of the most damning stats was Joe Gomez only won 6 of 13 of his aerial duels.
Yeah.
So, and they were definitely getting a lot of joy from knockdown balls, going straight up Route 1. It was lovely to see Alisson Becker in net. You could see that it just calmed things down a lot.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of that 4-2-3-1, I don't think that we quite pulled it off. I think that was Jota was the one that always seemed to be like the odd man out. He always seemed to be where he didn't need to be, or he wasn't where he was needed. Yeah. And he got the goal, which was nice, but I think that he was a little bit out of sorts. He was kind of between two stools. And I think he's a magnificent acquisition for us. And I said this as soon as we got him. I said, he's going to bang them in for fun for us. What's he got, 2 now?
Mm-hmm.
And in the league against Arsenal, and then this one yesterday.
Yeah. First place in Mane, I think, to score on his first 2 games at Anfield.
That's right. 2015, I think, is what it was.
Yeah.
But it was a grueling game to watch. It wasn't my favorite game I've ever watched. But again, we came out 2-1. I think on balance, we probably deserved it. I take my hat off to Sheffield. I think that Chris Wilder said, the hell with it. We're going to go hammer and tongs at this lot. And they did.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see the difference between having a week on a training pitch and not having your guys go away on international duty versus we looked leggy. And Jota was dead on his feet towards the end of that match. I watched him traipse around, and he was struggling.
Yeah.
But we won, man. That's 3 points. We're top of the log. Well, tied top of the log on second on goal difference, and I'll take it all day.
Yeah, I did watch it back, and I didn't think we were. I think it was a better performance in hindsight than it felt at the time, and I think a lot of that's influenced by the penalty.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think in the first half, Digne and Hendo looked like they weren't quite sure about this 4-2-3-1 thing. And they were the ones that, for me, that actually kind of left Fabinho exposed when they didn't need to. So my going forward take is you bring in Thiago and maybe Fabinho play the 2, which they're both experienced in. That's a different. We look much better playing that formation going forward.
I think Thiago is going to offer you more going forward, even from if it's a double pivot. I think. Going forward, you can see his capacity to be able to pick a pass that puts people into space or opens it up. It was very tight in a lot of areas in the midfield.
Yeah. And
again, I think a lot of that's got to do with like a really big, hard physical game in the midweek, not having much time to figure out that 4-2-3-1. But once you get Thiago in there, I think it'll be a completely different kettle of fish.
Yeah. And that is, of course, after being kicked all over the place last Saturday. Sean, your take, but I know you shared a really interesting graphic about expected goals. You can talk about that or not, but I thought it was significant. Liverpool were top of this list on the unexpected goals, which probably says something about the way we've been playing is perhaps better than the results are showing.
Yeah, so the first thing I wanted to say is that I've seen that graphic going around, and I got to say, like, I've been a little bit critical of Gomez since before the lockdown. I think since the lockdown, because I think Gomez was fantastic most of last year. I think at times he was even better than Van Dijk. And then for me, at least, after the lockdown, he just wasn't quite the same for a while. But I got to say, like, this past week, I think he really stepped up. He looked a lot better to me. And then the statistic yesterday about the headers, 6 of 13, like you said, McBurney. You know, McBurney's going to do that to most center backs. So I wouldn't, it's not his strongest attribute, but I wouldn't take too much from that. In terms of the graphic Paul's talking about, it's Understat. It's like, free website. Anybody can go look at XG stats. But if you look at the expected goals table, we're first in the table. So and expected goals is really like a measure of performance and number of chances you're creating, not actual expected goals. But so with that, what it shows is that we're actually creating more chances so far on average than we did the last 2 years. It's like 2.5 per game, as opposed to like about 2 the last 2 years. So, going forward, we're actually doing better so far this year in terms of creating chances. We got to finish those, and there's a lot more to it. But I think in terms of our performances, I think we've been pretty unlucky this year. And I was going to save this until the end, but I did want to read this from Klopp yesterday, the post-match interview after Sheffield. He said, on the penalty, there was no foul. It's now been 6 games into the season, and 3 of them we have been on the wrong side of these kinds of decisions. We're not asking for an advantage. We just do not want to be disadvantaged, and this is the current situation. So I think you don't even have to read into that. I mean, obviously the manager sees it that way, and one goal in a match makes a huge difference, and these decisions are swinging matches at least 1 goal, if not 2. So you would hope eventually those things would even out. I think, to your point, Daz, I think we're going to have to get used to it seems like, at least in the last couple matches, the officials are just letting things go against us. And I think maybe we have to get used to that this year and just, buckle down and get a little bit tougher. We're just going to have to start expecting some of this stuff, I think, unfortunately, because they're just letting it go, it seems. So, again, it's going to be a tough road, but on the 4-2-3-1, I agree. So I thought the game yesterday, I thought we really dominated the first 15 minutes or so, and then they got the penalty and we fell off for a little bit, for maybe 15 minutes or so, and then I thought we got it back, and I think second half, that too, Ginny and Hendo, at least from what I could tell, it seemed like they weren't pushing forward quite as much, and we were doing a better job sort of eliminating that gap between the midfield and the center backs. So, it's a new formation, and there's going to be some learning curve there. So, and I agree, like if you put Fabinho or Thiago, maybe even Nabi, I don't know. I mean, we haven't seen Nabi in that role for us yet, but I know he's played it in the past. I think the 2 might work better, but we'll see. It's kind of exciting to see the potential with those 4 attacking players, but the 2 has to work in order for the 4 to work. So I think the first half anyway yesterday, that wasn't quite there.
Yeah. And I think you're right that it got disrupted by like the penalty that they probably all thought wasn't a penalty. So just to complete this then, Charlie, I know you already commented on yesterday's game, but any kind of final thoughts on the Sheffield United experience?
One thing that really hit home with from what Sean said is we have to start expecting to get the raw end of the stick with these decisions. And I've decided that for the last, since Everton, it's just, you know what, every time you see something that could go against us, it's going to go against us. And so prepare yourself, and then don't get too perturbed when, you're right. So that's literally every decision against Sheffield. As soon as they started reviewing that Fabinho attack, I'm like, this is going to be a penalty. I figured that Robbo's handball would have been a penalty. And every time that something's going to be called back, to our disadvantage or made to happen to our disadvantage, I'm expecting the worst. So it's a terrible way to have to live life, but it helps you deal with it when you get that.
It would have helped.
4-2-3-1. Sorry?
I said it would have helped. I was with like a small group of people outside on the street yesterday at Catherine Rooney's. Yeah, I don't think there's much of that moderated thinking going on. But,
I have to do it. It's honestly, it's the only thing that can save me from just tearing my hair out, what little of it I have left. Yeah. But as far as the 4-2-3-1 goes, I guess it was difficult. It's a difficult situation to be putting that in, given the changes at the back. But Genie and Hendo, obviously at first I think there were some difficulties. a sacrifice of humans in the middle of the field means that there's, more space to cover, and you want to make sure you cover it well without leaving your, less, solid center backs hung out to dry. So there was, some getting used to that, but I don't think the forwards helped very much either. It's similar to what Sean said in that they were a little bit all over the place, and I don't know. There maybe needed to be a little more structure, and that's not what we expect to see from the forwards. But maybe needed to be a little more structure and a little bit more filling that gap, so that the double pivot didn't have to fill all that space. It'd be interesting going forward, seeing if you do have a double pivot, you'd have one a la maybe Fabinho and Henderson, I guess, who are adept at being that holding midfielder, and one who's ready to go forward, like Thiago and Keita, maybe. Where Genie fits in there, I don't know. But so it's going to be a lot of work on that. Looking forward to seeing what they do. But just to grind out a win and to feel the guys out for that really first half, and just figure out what they needed to do to make inroads against that five at the back that Sheffield was sitting with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And if I could just interject, it would be neat if you kept a statistic on your show this year about how many different formations we see and how many different iterations of the starting 11, because against West Ham, it could be, I don't know. I mean, it could be something totally different. We could see Minamino and Firmino up top, or Minamino and Salah up top, or there's just a lot of different ways that it can be done. And I think that the formation is going to take, it'll have to take, a back seat to who's available on any given day for any given match.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point, because after the next international break, the next international break is not until almost April. And during that period of time, we're basically playing 2 games a week, almost every single week. So we're going to have to rotate. So that'll be interesting. That could be something kind of fun to keep track of.
Yeah. So there is one issue, I think, with because all these formations, the way we play them, are supposed to give you this fluidity, right? But I think the downside of fluidity is, I think we've already talked about it. Like, I thought you were supposed to be there, and there's a big gap now. And I don't think Robertson and Mane linked up as well yesterday as they have done in the previous games because of that change in formation.
One other thing I want to say about the formation, I was kind of surprised. I guess I shouldn't be that surprised, but I think it might have worked better if Mane played on the right and Jota on the left. Because I think when Jota's played before, he's linked pretty well with Robertson. They seem to have a good understanding of each other right away. And Mane's played on the right. He's a 2-footed player. I don't think it would have been that difficult for him to make the switch. So I would have liked to have seen it back if we had done that instead. But
interesting thought. Yeah. So I guess that gives us an opportunity then to look ahead. We've got Midtjylland. Hope that's the right pronunciation. And West Ham, which I think is going to be a different, because it was on Sean's the thing he shared with us. West Ham are like 3rd or 4th in terms of expected goals this season, which is just kind of weird. David Moyes' West Ham. Anyway, so looking ahead to this week, what are your expectations? What do you think might happen? Ben, let's start with you.
I think the one thing that we probably could count on is using all 5 substitutions in Denmark. Is that where we're going? Denmark?
Or at home, I think, against them.
Right.
They're a Danish team, yeah.
Yeah, I think that if there's any certainty, there's certainty in that. I guess maybe I should have saved my interjection for this, is that who knows formation, who knows which 11. Maybe we see one of the young center backs play. That could be. I mean, we cannot lose Fabinho due to a fatigue-related injury, and I mean, it is pretty sacrilege, or you'd be kicking yourself at the end if you drop points at home in the Champions League when you rotate the squad in the Champions League. But it's a different. It's a different game this season, and I think that there's going to be significant rotation. I wouldn't be surprised if, in particular, Firmino gets a big rest. He scored a goal. There's less of a concern about it being a ding on his sort of psychological character, right? You can say you got your goal, you're moving in the right direction, but you, my friend, need to sit down for a little while. I think that's what I see going forward. And I think probably if I were to reserve my players for one of the matches, I would probably go with West Ham. I think I would rotate more midweek and save the big guns for the weekend. The one other thing I wanted to bring up is that I don't know how often Daz is on this show, but if your listeners have not developed a drinking game yet, it definitely should be how many anglicisms he uses. I didn't write them down, but I got kettle of fish, hammer and tongs. And then when I'm on, I can throw in some Iowa-isms too, like today Everton looked uglier than a mud fence, you know? So take a shot every time Ben has an Iowa-ism. There you go.
Uglier than a mud fence. Love it. Yes. Long may that continue.
What was it? Uglier than a camel's arse chewing a biscuit? Remember that one quarterback machine?
That's vivid. That paints a very clear picture in the mind.
So hopefully that's a description of some other team. Daz, what are you looking forward to this week?
I was just going to kind of piggyback on what Ben was saying about the how much rotation we can expect. Mm-hmm. And again, I'll go back because I like Sean Rogers as a pundit, and obviously being a coach, you get some of the insights that he has too. And I don't think I know he's not on the level of a Klopp, but he knows his business.
Yep.
And the one concern that you would have is if it's against an opponent where guys can pad their stats, you're not going to be able to keep a Mo Salah on the bench or a Mane on the bench. They're going to want to bang 2 or 3 in, looking for that golden boot, looking for the. I don't think it's money for these guys anymore because they make enough of it, but it's the prestige to be able to say that they got the golden boots in the Champions League, that kind of stuff. So he's going to have to balance that with the fact that he is going to need to give these guys some rest. So I think you'll probably see more of the same in the 5. Again, what Ben was saying, you definitely have the 5 subs, but he'll probably give his big guns the first 50 or 60 minutes. And then once everything is assured, he'll probably bring the other 5 on, change the front 3, maybe pull 2 of his midfielders off. But I wouldn't mind seeing Andy Robbo get a break. He's run his bollocks off the last 3 matches. And I think I tweeted something to this effect, like they need to bottle what he has and give it to the rest of the squad, because it's just he's incredible what he offers. I wouldn't mind seeing a Jimmy Milner back there, or if Chimikas. I don't know where he's at in terms of his fitness, but it might be a good match for him. Maybe a Williams in the right back position. But in terms of the big guns, I think you'll probably roll out the regular front 3 just to give them the chance to pad their stats. And it's tough to say, because I remember we thought we were going to go to Belgrade and stomp the ever-loving business out of them, and that didn't really go according to plan either. We are a really mixed bag in the Champions League, and we have been under Klopp. Obviously, we've made it to 2 finals, won one of them, so we've done something right, but you never really know what you're going to get. Like Forrest Gump's box of chocolates, I guess, is what would be the best way to describe what we're like in the Champions League.
Yeah.
Against West Ham, I really, really dislike West Ham intensely. Probably because I went to Anfield and watched one of the most boring games of football I've ever seen. It was a 0-0. That's when Luis Suarez was in, and we were just – I forget who their goalkeeper was, but I counted every time the ball went out of play. It took him 38 seconds to kick the ball back in, just spoiling football.
Yeah.
And I wasn't a big fan of them before, but that just cemented it. I'd really like us to see us stomp the 6 shades of brown stuff out of them, but I don't think it's going to happen. It's going to be a grueling match, and Tony up top is dangerous, and the fact that we have two center backs right now that kind of play to his strengths, I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't bang one in. So I think it'll be a tighter affair than. I think we'll get the 3 points, but I think it's going to be a lot tighter of affair than we'd like.
So West Ham, there is some consolation in not liking them because I think some of their fans wanted them to get relegated last season because they don't like the owners that much.
The Dildo Brothers?
Yes, those guys.
That's what they call them.
Yeah, right. They are not. So I don't know how much the beginning of the season has changed anyone's opinion, but generally the fans are not fans of the owners. West Ham could be challenging, but Antonio I don't think is as good in the air as, say, McBurney. So I think that may make a difference about kind of who Liverpool pick. Because the one thing we haven't talked about
is he's physical, he's powerful, he likes to go at people. So it's you will bang and grind.
Yeah. So I think if he was good in the air though, then Matip's numbers suggest that if he's fit, he's a better person to play. In fact, I don't know if anyone saw the Athletic article this week about Liverpool's possible centre-half signings if they sign someone. But it was incredible to read that Matip has better numbers on heading than Van Dijk.
Mm-hmm.
And what that leads to is there is no second ball from like when Gomez or Fabinho are defending. Wow. Okay. Next week, Sean.
I'm hoping for 2 wins. I think we really need the win against Midtjylland, to win the group. We don't need it, but it would be pretty bad, I think, if we didn't get the 3 points against them. But I also think we probably will rotate against them, given who we played yesterday. So I'm probably more concerned about that one than I should be. But I think it's to Daz's point, where the Champions League, you just can't take anything for granted. All these clubs are good in order to get there. I think Midtjylland had to win a few games just to even get to the group stage. So, I hope we don't take them for granted because I don't know much about them, but just from past experience, those kinds of clubs sometimes sneak up on you. I guess I'm feeling relatively calm about West Ham because I'm hoping to get Thiago back. And I think if we have Thiago in our midfield, from the little I've seen West Ham this year, what's improved for them, to me at least, is that their midfield is functioning a lot better. A lot of it's taken Mark Noble out of the midfield, which probably help anybody because he's just been worthless for years. But it's allowed Declan Rice, I think, to sort of step up and kind of take control of that midfield. And I don't think they'll have the ability to do that. And I think if Thiago is allowed to control that game, I don't think West Ham is beating us or getting anything off of us. So, that's I'm kind of hopeful for that. But I think if Thiago plays in that game, we'll be all right.
I like the sound of that. Midtjylland, by the way, are the only team in Europe who have a better percentage of success from throw-ins than we do. Which may seem an insignificant stat, but they're obsessed by stats in a way that maybe only we are.
Isn't our throw-in coach, doesn't he work with Atalanta and Midtjylland or something like that?
Ajax.
You stole my punchline. You stole my punchline. Yes, he worked with them. Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing I was going to throw in there is I think I'm most concerned about Atalanta in our group. I think those games against them are going to be really exciting, but that'll be following week. So.
Yeah. So I did read that someone said our group is like for soccer hipsters.
Atalanta is
for Ajax and Midtjylland because of like the stat stuff and the pressing and history.
So tattoos and neck beards.
What's that?
Tattoos and neck beards.
That beats the Labrador puppies. Yeah. Charlie, last thoughts on next week.
I think he'll rotate heavily for Midtjylland, and I think we'll come out with a win. Have your big guns on the bench ready to go on late if we need to get a result, but I think it's not going to be too much trouble, just given the resilience and the fact that we can rotate heavily and still play a very solid game. We're at home, so that's good. I think we'll see fairly full strength against West Ham. Matip and Thiago. Not that I think Thiago is fragile. They kind of worry me against West Ham. I feel like we want more of a robust lineup who can, hit them back. So I want to see 2 wins, and then I want to see, at least a point against Atalanta, and then finish up with a win at Man City before the break.
Hey, you're stealing our thunder on the next episode. So we're recording this on October 25th. We'll be back next week. We'll preview Atalanta and Man City, who seem to... No, I won't even go there. We'll talk about Man City next week. So let's close. Thank you so much.
Go on.
They haven't looked good, have they? Really? City?
Toothless.
Yeah. So Sean Rogers today used the expression, which I've seen retweeted in a few different places, saying that, are you prepared to burn the boats? And he's like not convinced that City have the mindset to be like, we're going to do everything we can to win this game. It's that they've been not happy to settle for draws, but not been so committed to winning that they've kind of gone for it in a really kind of the kind of way that we might.
Almost as bad as us with injuries, right? Laporte's out, Aguero re-injured.
Yep.
It's hard to watch.
Yeah.
Did he injure his shoulder petting the female linesman on the neck there?
Yeah, nothing wrong with that, right? And like every ex-professional said. Of course, it's that. No, that's not good. Just in case you're
brainless.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, the chants we hear on the plane after they win. It's kind of like, so much of that club lacks class.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think just if you really want to hammer some of that home, I forget exactly what De Bruyne said, but it was something to the effect of I think that Pep has kind of lost the ability to get the best out of his club. And I think a lot of it comes down to their limited success in the Champions League. Like they don't seem to have the same type of invincibility around them that they had before. And you can see, like, I don't think that boat burning is in their collective DNA, because for the most part, they're a fairly expensively assembled group of mercenaries. And you're not going to get them to cut their own throats, so to speak, to give it their all for that club, because they're looking. Raheem Sterling's already battered his eyelashes. Again, like you could say that he hasn't or that he has, but given his track record with us, and then was he with Palace before that? Before he came to us, they said the same thing. It's wherever he was before.
From the south.
Same thing. Like he's always looking for what's next for him.
Yeah.
And again, he's a professional, so you can't hold. But the way that he's gone about it, and like it or not, he's definitely put himself in a position where he can take a lot of stick. And then his miss yesterday when he was through on goal is kind of icing on the cake.
But it's okay. They're going to get messy, and that'll solve everything.
That's a whole show on its own. So I think the bonus coverage this week was we had a takedown of Man City. Hopefully that'll pan out when we play them, because I'm sure they'll be much more motivated to play us than West Ham or any of these other teams. We're going to close it this week with one thing from this week that you saw potentially about the Reds. Could be about anybody else that kind of links to us. Quickly going to go around. And Ben, what's one thing this week that you saw that you'd want to share?
Well, mine is pretty weird, but I am married to a woman from Colombia, and there are lots of Colombian connections around Liverpool, the city, and the club. There are 2 Colombians playing for Everton right now, which means that I sort of live in a house divided. Nothing put on the walls. Haven't really rubbed anybody's nose and crap about the result today yet, but the day is young. Got Alfredo Morelos with Steven Gerrard at Rangers. When we play Atalanta, they have a long history of having Colombian players, and I think Luis Muriel at least is one of the players we'll see. Mm-hmm. And so kind of an out-of-the-way country that we may not think about as having a lot of players in Europe, but as we go through this year, we'll see more and more of them.
Yeah, unfortunately. My son's soccer coach is from Colombia. And first, when I showed up in my Liverpool shirt at one of the games, he's like, "Oh, Everton, we're rivals of yours." And I don't think you're rivals of ours. I think you're. Anyway, he didn't understand, actually. I thought it was hugely funny, and he did not. So that's one thing.
I think this is going to be a wonderful league year, whether or not it's because of COVID or whatever the reasoning behind it is. I think that this will probably be one of the most fun league campaigns to watch in recent memory.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think 96 points is going to win it. I'd be surprised if actually we do get to 90, if anyone gets to 90 points this season. It just feels because there is that lack of crowd, or there's that lack of whatever's going on, that the energy levels seem to be a little bit different from players. They seem to be lacking that 5%, to Ben's point, when the goal is being sucked into the Kop, by the Kop rather. But I don't know, like I've really enjoyed watching some of the matches that I would ordinarily have had zero interest in watching. Specifically, the Leeds match yesterday, I thought was wonderful. Like seemed like there's a lot of room for drama this year, I think, is the best way of putting it.
Yeah. It does seem that it's really hard to alter the course of games in a way that with crowds that you probably once could, which I think is what makes yesterday's win for us so significant, in that game could easily have gone away and didn't.
I think last weekend, if it had been 2-1 and they had their crowd in their gaff, we would have won it. We would have seen it out at 2-1.
Because they'd been groaning about all sorts of things. Yeah,
they would have been on their backs about absolutely everything.
Yeah. Sean, one thing you take away from this week?
I was happy to see Rhys Williams get a couple minutes in the Champions League. I don't know if you can read too much into it, but I was really keeping tabs on who would be that second choice, or I guess it would be third or fourth choice center back for us in that game against Ajax, and it was Rhys Williams. And not only did he make the bench, but Klopp chose to sub him in at the end of the match. So you can read, maybe I'm reading into it too much, but to me that says he might be the next one up if we need somebody. And from what I read today, I think it was he scored in the under 23 match.
Yeah.
So hopefully we see more of him and he continues to improve. But there was a story I read that it was kind of a big step up. I think last year he was on loan in a League One for a League One club, and then he got
non-league.
What's that?
It was non-league.
Yeah. So and then he gets play whatever it was 5-10 minutes in the Champions League. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's interesting that he played this weekend for the under-23s, and Matt Phillips was on the bench. Does suggest that they wants to give him game time for some reason. So yeah,
like Joel style with a Virgil hairdo.
Yeah. He's an interesting player to watch too. Obviously, just with his hair, but and I think I haven't looked at the stats or anything, but it seems like he's good in the air. I assume that's why Klopp put him in towards the end of the game, because he likes to do that.
Yeah.
So we could use him up there too.
So Charlie, to close, one last thing.
Well, to further to the defense center back side of things, did anyone else notice that Nat Phillips has a new squad number? So that was interesting. He was on the bench yesterday as our potential backup center back. So Nat Phillips might also have something to say about this, and I wouldn't be surprised to see one or the other of those line up to start on Tuesday.
What is the number?
I don't know. It's significant. It was significantly lower
75
than his last number to strike me. Okay. No, it was 20 something. Yeah.
Well, interesting. Hey, pretty good. One thing I'll close with is this has been doing the rounds. Liverpool apparently have scored 9,999 goals in their history. So the next goal we score will be the 10,000th. Wow.
Who do you want it to be?
Oh, that could take us another 25 minutes to discuss. I want it to be Mo, and I'm going to leave it there.
Yes, Paul wants it to be Mo.
Yeah.
We all know that.
All right.
Good option.
Thank you so much, Ben. Thank you so much, Daz, Sean, Charlie. It's been awesome. Thank you. Take
Cheers.
care.